Hello, and welcome to our podcast, episode number 94, the iconic sequel to Universal's classic horror masterpiece. I am Timothy, and I am here with my dear friend Tom. Today, we are going to talk about a film called Bride of Frankenstein. Be aware, spoilers ahead. Bride of Frankenstein is a 1935 American science fiction horror film, and the first sequel to Universal Pictures' 1931 film Frankenstein. The story continues with the monster surviving his apparent death in the first movie, being brought to life by Dr. Pretorius and finding a mate created by Dr. Frankenstein himself. Thomas M., so did you enjoy Bride of Frankenstein?
Well, Tim, I thought it was quite entertaining. I mean, who doesn't love a good monster movie? The special effects for its time were impressive, and the storyline kept me hooked till the end.
Oh, really? I didn't find it scary at all. It was just, silly, to be honest.
Now, Timothy, you know I love a good horror flick as much as anyone else, but you have to admit that Bride of Frankenstein has aged quite gracefully. The black and white cinematography adds to its eerie atmosphere, don't you think?
Well, the setting was well done, I give them that, but the characters were just...
Well, you know what I mean?
It felt like they were just going through the motions.
Now, Timothy, let's not be too harsh. After all, this film was made during the height of the Great Depression. People needed a little escape from reality. And what better way than to watch monsters terrorize a small village?
I suppose you have a point there, Thomas. But I still prefer the original Frankenstein movie with that Boris Karloff fellow. That one had more depth, I guess you could say.
Well, my dear Timothy, we'll have to agree to disagree on this one. Personally, I think Bride of Frankenstein surpasses its predecessor in terms of storytelling and visual effects. But enough of my rambling. Let's hear what you thought about the plot twist at the end.
I must say I didn't see that coming. The monster sacrificing himself for his new bride, that was quite a turn of events. What do you think, Tom?
Oh, I was quite taken aback by that twist as well, Timothy. It's a classic example of how love can truly change a monster. And it adds a layer of poignancy to the story, doesn't it? Here is this creature who has been misunderstood and feared, finally finding acceptance and love, only to have it ripped away in the cruelest of ways. It really tugs at the heartstrings, don't you think?
I suppose you could say that, Tom, but for me it was just a bit too melodramatic. I mean, come on, we're talking about a monster here. Love can change anyone, yes, but sometimes the storyline becomes more of an excuse to elicit emotions rather than actually exploring the characters and their motivations.
Well, Timothy, my dear friend, I think you might be overthinking it a bit. Bride of Frankenstein is not Shakespeare's Macbeth. It's a horror film meant to entertain and thrill its audience. And in that regard, it certainly succeeds. The story of two outcasts finding solace in each other's company, only to be ripped apart by the cruel hands of society, is timeless and relatable even today.
I can admit that the visuals were impressive for its time, but overall Bride of Frankenstein just didn't quite live up to its potential, in my opinion. Do you have any interesting trivia about the film, Tim? You usually know some fun facts about these classic horror flicks. I always do, Tim. So, did you know that during the scene where the monster and his bride are dancing together in the rain, it actually started to pour down real rain? The cast and crew had to rush to cover the expensive costumes and props with tarps, but fortunately, most of the footage was already shot before the storm hit.
That's quite a coincidence. So what about some behind-the-scenes trivia? I heard that the makeup artist responsible for creating the iconic monster look actually used part of director James Whale's own hair for the character's wig.
Really? That's quite interesting. So what do you think about Bride of Frankenstein's legacy, Tim? Do you believe it has stood the test of time as well as its predecessor?
Well, Timmy, my dear fellow, I think it's safe to say that Bride of Frankenstein has definitely stood the test of time. It's still widely regarded as a classic horror film, and its influence can be seen in countless films and stories that have come after it. The characters and themes continue to resonate with audiences decades later, which is a testament to Whale's skillful direction and the talented cast and crew who brought it to life. As for trivia, did you know that during filming, there was an accident on set where actor Boris Karloff's prosthetic arm got caught in some machinery, causing him to lose a few fingers? Fortunately, makeup artist Jack Pierce was able to skillfully reattach the appendage, and the damage was virtually unnoticeable in the final product. Now, since we're on the topic of the soundtrack, Timothy, I must say that I absolutely adored the haunting melody composed by the legendary composer Joseph Brennan. Do you remember that chillingly beautiful theme song, Bride of Frankenstein, that plays throughout the film? It truly adds to the eerie atmosphere Whale was trying to create. What about yourself, Timothy? Any favorite moments from Bride of Frankenstein's soundtrack?
Well, Tom, while I can appreciate a good score when I hear one, I must admit that the soundtrack of Bride of Frankenstein didn't exactly leave a lasting impression on me. Don't get me wrong. It was well composed and complemented the film's gothic atmosphere, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking in my opinion. It served its purpose in setting the mood and enhancing key scenes, but I find myself more drawn to the performances of the actors and their chemistry on screen rather than the orchestration behind it. Now, moving on to your question about my favorite moments from Bride of Frankenstein soundtrack, I suppose if I had to choose one, it would be during the scene where the monster and his bride are finally alone together in the windmill. The score becomes more urgent and ominous, mirroring the growing sense of doom and anticipation that permeates the air. When they finally embrace, the music swells with a mixture of hope and despair, reflecting their complex emotions. However, if we're talking about a specific piece from the soundtrack that stands out for me, it would be the Bride of Frankenstein theme song I mentioned earlier. Its hauntingly beautiful melody and haunting lyrics perfectly capture the film's themes of love, loss, and acceptance. So, Thomas, what about yourself? Did any particular moment or piece from the soundtrack resonate with you more than others? And do you have a favorite track or scene that comes to mind when you think of Bride of Frankenstein's score?
Well, Timothy, my dear chap, I must say that the performances in Bride of Frankenstein are truly a sight to behold. Let's start with the titular role of Frankenstein's monster, played by Boris Karloff. His portrayal of the tormented creature is simply masterful, evoking both sympathy and terror in equal measure. You can't help but empathize with his longing for love and acceptance despite his monstrous appearance. His physicality and facial expressions convey a depth of emotional range that transcends mere acting. As for the supporting cast, they each bring their own unique flair to the film. Elsa Lanchester truly shines as both Mary Shelley and Frankenstein's bride. Her portrayal of the two characters is seamless, with subtle nuances that add layers of complexity to the story. She effortlessly switches between vulnerability and strength, innocence and cunning, captivating the audience from moment to moment. Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein delivers a performance that's both commanding and conflicted. His obsession with creating life at any cost mirrors the classic tragic hero archetype. He's charismatic yet ultimately doomed by hubris, adding another layer of depth to the film's exploration of the consequences of tampering with nature. Finally, we have Ernest Thesiger as Dr. Pretorius, who brings an air of sophistication and mischief to every scene he appears in. His witty banter with Frankenstein and his unapologetic pursuit of knowledge, no matter the moral implications, make him a delightfully villainous figure. In conclusion, Bride of Frankenstein boasts an all-star cast that perfectly brings Whale's vision to life. The chemistry between Karloff and Lanchester is palpable, elevating what could have been simple horror tropes into genuine moments of poignancy and pathos. The film truly stands the test of time, thanks in large part to these talented performers who breathed life into some of cinema's most iconic roles. So, Timothy, do you agree? Do any particular performances or character arcs stand out for you in Bride of Frankenstein? And how do you think the cultural significance of this classic horror film has evolved over the years?
Well, Thomas will begin by saying that Bride of Frankenstein is indeed a classic film. And its cultural significance has grown over the years. The themes it explores, such as the consequences of tampering with nature, the pursuit of knowledge at any cost, and the yearning for acceptance and love, still resonate deeply with audiences today. Frankenstein's monster is a symbol of marginalization and discrimination, while Frankenstein himself represents the hubris and arrogance of mankind in believing it can play God. These themes are as relevant now as they were when the film was released, which speaks volumes about its enduring relevance. The portrayal of the monster as a sensitive and emotional character capable of love and empathy challenged the traditional depiction of monsters as mindless brutes to be feared and destroyed. This nuanced portrayal paved the way for more complex and sympathetic portrayals of monsters in later films and popular culture at large. Bride of Frankenstein also tackles themes of feminism and gender roles, with Mary Shelley and Frankenstein's bride defying the societal norms of their time by asserting themselves and demanding agency over their own destinies. Furthermore, the film's visual elements, such as the Gothic sets designed by Karloff and the pioneering special effects by makeup artist Jack Pierce, have influenced countless horror films that came after it. The iconic image of the Frankenstein monster and his bride locked in an eternal embrace has become synonymous with romantic love or a tragic doomed relationship, depending on the context. In conclusion, Bride of Frankenstein's cultural significance lies not only in its groundbreaking storytelling and performances, but also in its ability to challenge societal norms and explore timeless themes that continue to resonate with audiences worldwide. So, Thomas, do you agree? Are there any other aspects of Bride of Frankenstein's cultural significance that we might have overlooked?
Well, Timothy, I'm not sure we could have covered all aspects of Bride of Frankenstein's cultural significance in one podcast episode. However, one aspect that might have slipped our mind is the film's exploration of the consequences of mankind's pursuit of knowledge and power. The story serves as a cautionary tale about the potential dangers of tampering with nature's delicate balance and how unchecked ambition can ultimately lead to disaster. Bride of Frankenstein is not just a horror film. It's also a thought-provoking commentary on the ethical implications of scientific advancement and the responsibility that comes with it. In conclusion, Bride of Frankenstein remains an enduring classic that continues to captivate audiences with its timeless themes, memorable characters, and groundbreaking visuals. Its cultural significance is undeniable, and its relevance only grows stronger as we continue to grapple with the ethical dilemmas of our own age. So, folks, join us next time for another thrilling episode of Timothy and Thomas Film Nights, where we'll be delving into another cinematic masterpiece. Until then, remember to comment, subscribe, and hit that little like button to show your support.